Welcome back to the Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Wu Ruiguo. In this segment, we will continue our conversation with Professor Bao Zhonghe, Professor and Vice President at the National Taiwan University. Professor Bao, we know that you're also being a long-term observer of relations across the Taiwan Strait. And you're also part of the official delegation from Straits Exchange Foundation back in 1998 to both Shanghai and Beijing. And we also understand that since the inauguration of President Ma Ying-jeou in May of 2008, there's been tremendous changes and progress in cross-strait relations. How would you then, as a long-time observer and one-time participant in the cross-strait negotiations, look at these changes? How do you assess them?
I think after President Ma came into the office,
yes,
I think if we have some assessment
yes,
on the cross-strait relations, I think the major change is that the Taiwan government, the policy towards China, come back to rational.
Yes.
They choose the very soft line and is try to compromise with the Beijing government. So I think the major change is that we really, look at the national interest. Because if we take a look at the past 80 years, I think maybe everybody agrees that the government try to use the cross-strait relations as maybe as an instrument
yes,
to compete for not really national interest, but maybe the party interest and the individual interest. So that's kind of to manipulate the cross-strait relations to compete for other interests.
yes,
But after 2008, I think this kind of situation changed. I think the new government really think about what's good for Taiwan and
yes,
not only for short term but for longer term.
yes.
So I think that's the main change.
Okay. So the change in government policy and also attitude really prompt all the progress that we have seen in cross-strait relations. And we also understand that in the past, 3 summit meetings between ARATs in China and also CEF in Taiwan, there's been 9 agreements signed and also 1 joint declaration, to enhance economic relations primarily between the 2 sides. So now the cross-strait relations, the progress has primarily been in the economic area. How do you think that the trust and the understanding that's being accumulated in the economic domain will help us further down the line when inevitably that we're going to be discussing politically sensitive issues? Would you think that the enhanced trust and understanding will help in terms of cross-strait negotiations on the longer term?
Yeah, I think if we talk about political issue, should be very, very sensitive.
Yes.
I think the main problem for cross-strait relations is how to establish the mutual trust.
Yes.
There's no trust with each other for a very, very, very long time. Yeah. Even at this moment, it looks like good,
yes,
smooth. But I think still take time to establish a stable trust.
Accumulate.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the economic issue, that's kind of a win-win strategy. I mean, unlike a sovereignty issue and a political issue, that's kind of zero-sum game, you know. But for economic issue, that's a win-win game. So in that sense, I mean, both sides, if you pay more attention to economic issue at this moment, I think that's very, very good for both sides to establish the mutual trust. I think that's a very, very important step if we want to move forward to promote and improve the future relations across Taiwan Strait. So I think that's good.
Yes. Yeah. But some people, as Professor Bao, you probably heard them, say these things before, that some people are concerned that the economic overdependence on China, accusing the government of putting all the eggs in one basket. Do you think such a concern is warranted? Do you agree with their assessment of overdependence on China?
I think that's I don't think that's the over depend on Chinese market.
Yes.
But that's kind of a dependence on Chinese market. That's true. But I think many countries that compete for Chinese market
yes.
right now.
Yes.
So if Taiwan is absent, I think that's will hurt the national interest of Taiwan.
Of course.
So I think that's reasonable and that's a rational decisions for Taipei to try to enter the Chinese market and get some benefit. I think that's okay. But I disagree that if the policy is depends on Chinese market too much. That's not so good. You know, I disagree with that. But you know, now we want to sign, for example, ECFA with the Beijing government. So if there's a kind of a signing of the agreement, I think that's not only good for bilateral relations between Taiwan and the mainland,
yes.
but also maybe open the possibility for Taiwan to sign the FTA with many other countries.
Yes.
I think for many countries like, for example, the Singapore,
yes.
even the EU, wait and see, and any possibility for Taiwan and the mainland to sign any like a ECFA, this kind of agreement.
Yes.
If that's successful, then for many other countries, that's kind of, I don't mean that that's totally a green light, no. but that's okay. It means the possibility will be higher.
Okay.
So in that sense, the Taiwan's will, not only depends on one market because they sign many FTA, if that happens,
yes.
with many other countries.
Yes.
So it means diversify the market.
Yes.
That's will be carried out.
Yes, I think if Taiwan is able to diversify its export market after the signing of ECFA, I think that will be a huge a plus for our economic performance in many years to come. And of course, a lot of people are waiting and to see what will happen next after the ECFA is signed with China, if we can actually achieve market diversification. However, another thing that a lot of people have been discussing is that with the signing of ECFA, we are now looking at Chinese market not so much as a factory, just to manufacture products there because of cheap labor or cheap, land cost, and then the products produced in China will be exported eventually to EU countries or to North America. But now we're looking at Chinese market as the world market, as the place where Taiwan products, manufacturers, whether in China or in Taiwan or elsewhere, can penetrate the Chinese domestic market. So do you see that, with the signing of ECFA, that many Taiwanese businesses that's already operating on the mainland, that used to be export-oriented, now will have to be, turning inward, turning domestic into the Chinese domestic market and trying to penetrate and develop, for example, their own brand and try to gain a market share in China?
Yeah. Taiwan, like many other countries,
yes.
We are facing up the financial crisis.
Of course.
So we try to find many solutions to resolve this problem. I think the domestic, to enlarge the domestic market,
yes.
that's one of the way,
yes.
a feasible way. But the Taiwan, after all, is a small island, so the market is not so big.
No.
So if we can connect the Taiwan market with the Chinese market,
yes.
so we will enlarge the domestic.
That
domestic means
yes.
I don't mean that that's the one country. It means that we try to connect our market with mainland market.
Yes.
So in that sense, that's the enlarge the market. That's not really the foreign market because anyway, the China and the Taiwan share the same culture and the language,
yes, of course.
That's the similar, that kind of homogeneity.
Yes.
So I think that's good for Taiwan to find the solution.
Yes. And going back to an earlier point that Professor Bao you raised, that if we sign the ECFA with China, that maybe through ECFA with China that we can sign FTA or something similar, with other countries. Of course, that would be the top priority goal for Taiwan, for our government. But the fact of the matter remains is that we're probably not going to be able to sign FTA in the name but in terms of the substance, whether it's going to be TIFA with the United States, or it's going to be the Trade Enhancement Measure, TEM, with EU countries, whatever the name, but we actually get the substance that will help us to penetrate and into other markets and without worrying so much on tariffs and the amount of taxes that our products have to pay. Do you think that, in your past, contacts and exchanges with Chinese scholars, or also during your 1998 visit to China, do you think that Beijing, after signing ECFA with Taiwan, will be open to such an idea of Taiwan signing some type of trade enhancement act with other countries? Not necessarily FTA, because FTA implies that it's sovereign countries, but other names may be used, but the substance is there. How do you think that Beijing's reaction would be?
I think to promote Taiwan's trade relations with other countries, I think that's always acceptable by Beijing government.
Okay.
That's a long-term policy.
Okay.
But yes, I think there are some sensitive issue behind. So that's why the Beijing government sometimes is hesitant to give Taiwan's larger rooms to promote. But I think we have a lot of issues to contact and to discuss and to dialogue.
Yes.
So in that sense, I think it still depends on the future interaction between Taiwan and China. So if they are very smooth and good dialogue with each other, even maybe something maybe a little bit more sensitive, but if the both sides can sit down and exchange viewpoints, if that whole process is smooth,
yes,
I think maybe it's good for Beijing government to give a green light to Taiwan to diversify the market. Yeah.
Okay, good. And we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back to the Taiwan Outlook, and we're going to continue the conversation with Professor Bao Zhonghe and talk about Taiwan's foreign relations. We'll be back.